Was 16.5. Let's see if we can't catch one more on the glass shad. Oh no, 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 somebody cut me off, no way. Cut me clean off. Alright, so all the survivors are back in their place, and there's no point in crying over a lost lure. At least I had the chance to really see that it actually worked. It was catching fish for me. I had a long cast, and it really didn't sink as fast as I thought it was going to sink. So I was able to fish it in 4 to 5 feet of water without getting into the weeds too much. But today I'm going to make another one. I want to make another glass shad, and this one that's going to be more of a shad shape. I want that body a little deeper so that I can add an air chamber. I'll show you what I'm talking about. So this is the shape I'm shooting for now. A shape that's a little deeper from top to bottom and arced. And that'll give me a little more swimming action when I pull it in or sweep it with a rod tip. And this air pocket up here, I'm gonna leave empty. I'm not gonna put any weights in it or any rattles or anything. And the idea is to give this lure more stability top to bottom so that it wants to be facing straight up and down. So it's gonna be shaped a lot like this one. And when you have a material that's perfectly uniform all the way through, the lure wants to sort of fold onto its side when you give it a jerk. Typically when you make a lure like this, you make it out of something that's buoyant, something floaty, like wood or a light 2-part resin, and then you add weight on the bottom, kind of the opposite of what I'm doing here. And by doing that, you set up a tug of war between the buoyant force and the sinking force, and that keeps that lure standing straight up most of the time. What's left to see is whether I can still get a nice 3D paint job layering out the paint through all the layers of Lexan. So I've got the shape more or less smoothed out and in pretty good shape. I don't have the tapers on the ends, and on the last one I went ahead and did some tapering and some shaping before I took it apart to paint it. But this time I think I'm just going to take it apart, get that cavity drilled out and smoothed off pretty good, get it painted, and then put it all back together and then shape the general tapers on the ends and round off the top. That's the plan. Let's see how it works. Alright, so I'm going to take and put these two back together because I'm going to use these as my centerpieces, since right now all of them are more or less the same shape. And then I can use this drawing as my guide. That should be enough. And you're probably wondering how I know how much of a pocket to leave in this thing, and I really don't know anything exact. but I know that this material has a specific gravity of about 1.2, so that means it's about 20% heavier than water. So my intention is to take out less than 20% of the material. Now that's kind of a very rough, sort of halfway engineered estimate, but it'll keep me safe. It'll make it certain that at least it will sink, and it will have some level of buoyant stability with that little bit of an air pocket on the top. So these two are going to be the outer two pieces, and on the inside of the outer two pieces I want to have the outline of the facial features, the lip and the gill plates, and I'm just going to freehand that, and then I'll trace it onto the other one. I'm ready to paint, and I've got these things mounted on my holders, and you can see I've got a little piece of tape that forms a little bit of an arc around the belly, and then I've got it labeled in and out because it's really easy to forget which side is which, because it's really important when you're doing this 3D painting. You got to remember that you're painting from the inside out, and you got to keep track of which side you're painting on. So what I'm going to do here is on the very inside of both of these pieces, I'm going to paint it with a transparent green, and it's important to use transparent colors here because the whole idea is to allow light to go all the way through this lure. And I'm using these Badger paints. This one is called Ghost Tint Green. Alright, now I'm going to spray scales on the outside of the same inside pieces. Alright, on the last one I went with silver scales, and this one I'm going to go with golden scales. Alright, that looks pretty cool. Not sure if the camera will pick that up, but it looks pretty cool. Alright, let's do this one. Alright, so here's what they look like. Time to move on to the next two pieces. Alright, now I've got those outside pieces, and I've got the inside of the outside pieces facing me. I'm going to put a little bit of red right here at the chin, and then I'm going to do some spaz sticks, this mirror chrome stuff, so that you'll actually see the back of it, and hopefully it'll stay real shiny. And again, you're painting from the outside in, so I got to put the red down first, and then I'm going to put a halo around the eye, because I did that on the outside last time. I think I want it on the inside. Alright, while I have the black on here, I'll go ahead and put the strike eye on. I'll clean the gun, and we'll go to the spaz sticks. Alright, so it doesn't take much to do this. It just takes a couple of drops, and I just put in about 1,000 drops. Oops. So all I'm going to do is cover the face part, and I don't care if it bleeds back a little bit. That'll just give it a little more shimmer on the inside. I'm not sure if that's picking it up, but it looks pretty good. Alright, so that looks pretty good actually. Pretty happy with that. Now all that's left to do is just let this dry. I'll glue all the pieces together, and then we'll do some final shaping. And maybe a little, ooh, I got a spider. Must be getting close to Halloween. Alright, so we just get the tape off, and that should be enough preparation before we glue. You'll notice I did put a little bit of orange in that clear area I left on the belly. I just felt it needed a little something. All right, before I glue them, I'm just gonna go ahead and blow them off. Make sure I don't have a bunch of dust particles on them. So what seems to work pretty well is just layering in a thin layer of UV resin with this brush, putting enough there so it will kind of squirt out a little bit. and align it the best I can, and then squeeze it to get all the air bubbles out. The paints are all transparent. I can get UV light to go through the whole thing. What I need here is just an initial set, and I'll do the final set for all the pieces inside the bigger chamber with brighter lights. And we do the same for the next layer. You wanted a thin layer, but not too thin. We put this piece on here. All right, I'm not sure that I like the addition of that spastics. It just kind of taken away a little bit of the transparent nature of this thing. All right, it's looking kind of cool. I'm gonna go ahead and stick it in the other UV chamber and turn the lights on and give it as much exposure as I can. And we'll close this up. I'll go have lunch, and when I come back, it'll be ready for shaping.
And while we wait, let's go ahead and make those twist eyes that we need. And I'll use these jeweler's pliers to make a loop, and then I'll take that loop and put it in my safety wire twisting pliers and twist up these eyes. There are other ways to do this, but I really find this to be easy and simple. And if you're wondering where you can buy these tools, I try to keep updated links to all the stuff that I use on my Amazon store.
All right, it's been a couple hours and it's nice and solid. It looks kind of blocky, so I'm gonna go ahead and go back out to the belt sander and grind in tapers for the tail. For the nose, I want the nose to taper in, and then I want to round off the top and bottom. I sketched in some little taper guidelines for the tail and for the head. So that's what I'm using to get a more or less symmetric shape. Alright, it looks a little worse for wear after all that, but after I give it a nice smooth sanding, and at the very end we put a clear coat on it, it should look pretty nice, I think. Alright, I'm giving it the last of the sanding here. I've gone up in grit from like 80 to 220, and that's good enough. It's got a nice shape, both the front and the back. I think it's nicely tapered. I think it's nicely symmetric. The next step is to install the screw-in eyes. Glue them in with UV resin too. And from the last one, I learned that you really got to vent that hole to get that UV resin in there completely, so it's a nice, uniform, clear, solid plastic all the way through. I'm going to use this really tiny bit to drill a vent. Tiny little hole right here, and then this one's big enough so the twist eye fits in there really nice. And that's good. The belly eye, I'm gonna have to vent from the side. And to check if it's vented, I just blow in through one hole, and if it blows, we're good. All right, so I'm gonna hold this on top of a light so you can look, and hopefully you can see how the little chamber gets full. You see it, the stuff moving down towards the vent, and there might be a couple bubbles in there. I just insert this and rotate it counterclockwise so it kind of wants to drill itself in. And now I'll just hold it up under the light. Alright, so now I'm filling the belly, and you can see it come out of the vent, so I know it's full. And we'll put this guy in. Alright, I did the tail one too, and I stuck it on the UV bulb so it'll set really well. This way all three will be rock hard.
So right when we're doing the last bit of painting, my microphone craps out. But here I'm going to go ahead and paint the belly with metallic white. And I masked the rest of the body off because I didn't want to get any overspray on the sides of the body. Now I want to go ahead and touch up those strike eyes that I sort of messed up while I was sanding. And of course put that classic black top on the lure. And the last touch, just a little bit of pearlescent red on the chin. And then, as always, I'll seal the paint with a couple of coats of polyacrylic. I'll let that dry, and then it's time to put some eyes on it. And then the final step for this lure, of good thick clear coat. A good thick coat will cover up any defects I left in it when I was sanding, or any misalignment of pieces, although this one is pretty good. And after a few hours in the chamber, we'll be ready to go to the lake. Alright, well, I gave it a good long turn in the UV chamber, and I think it came out pretty nice. Aesthetically, I like the other one a little better, but I do like the flash from that spastic stuff. I'm going to go ahead and put it on a rod, and I'm going to show you what it looks like underwater, but first, I need some thumbnail shots. Alright, let's put it in the water. Not sure if you can see as it sinks, it has a really nice sort of shimmy. So you can really see that the sink rate has really been reduced by that, just that little bit of an air pocket on top. Alright, so a little bit of a roundup at the end here, what I really think of the design. I think the shape is spot on. The amount of air in there, perfect. I've got just a little less than a foot per second of drop through the water. It's got a nice action. The only thing I would change is the aesthetics. I think the paint job, mediocre. I would use the spastics more on top to hide the cavity. I think having the chrome right behind the gilt plate drawings just makes it look flat. Doesn't give it a nice 3D effect. Alright, well, with that, I'm gonna go ahead and keep fishing, and I'll see you guys next Friday. Snag it, first freaking cast. I happen to find the strongest lily pads on the planet.